Patriot One Technologies has launched a new technology that is positioned as potentially minimizing terrorist activity or the effects from it in public places around the world. The technology is a cognitive microwave radar, and here to talk with me about it today is the former First Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, the former Governor of the state of Pennsylvania, and the CEO and founder of Ridge Global.
That's a mouthful.
Ridge. That is a mouthful.
Nice to join you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm delighted to join you at this launch event. It's pretty exciting. It's pretty disruptive technology.
So let's talk a bit about, the biggest understatement I can think of, you know a thing or two about global security. Tell me how you came to be the first founding secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. What career path took you there?
Well, I'm not sure when President Bush wrote his book, he never specifically said, well, he gave me the call. Maybe I just didn't have caller ID. I'd like to think that it was the work I had done in Congress. I was known on both sides of the aisle as somebody that isn't so driven by partisanship, try to find solutions. I think it helped being a governor because in the effort to combat terrorism, you need the integration of federal, state, and local capabilities. Maybe you thought I was a pretty loyal guy, know how to keep a secret. I mean, who knows what happened, but he made the call, I answered it, and became the first Secretary of Homeland Security.
So this new technology that Patriot One Technologies is rolling out here, if there was a system that could effectively detect 93% of concealed weapons and in the future explosives, as their literature indicates, is that something that would be of interest to the Department of Homeland Security?
Well, I think it should be an interest to everybody, and not just the Department of Homeland Security in the United States, but globally, and most particularly in democracies. You know, I've said this many, many times. By definition, democracies like Canada, the United States, the UK, we're soft targets by definition. And we also have citizens who want us to be safer and more secure, but they don't want to they're not willing to abandon their civil liberties. They don't want to live in a fortress. So if you can come up with a technology that is sensitive to the need to provide additional safety and security and addresses other issues, they would welcome that. And again, not only in the department, I mean the private sector as well. We're talking about public buildings, whether they're owned by the private sector or by the government.
Sure, I heard one of the gentlemen from the company say that police could be wearing this and be able to detect in real time in front of a suspect whether they were armed or not. And I thought, well, that makes it now something that every law enforcement officer in the world is going to want to have as a tool.
Well, once it's perfected and they're well on their way, it would be as important, if more important, than the cameras that we now have a lot of police officers wearing in the United States and presumably in Canada. You know, the notion that you can detect a potential assailant, a potential actor, because they've hidden on their person knives, weapons, firearms, an explosive device that has ball bearings or nails or metal fragments can be detected. To be able to detect that outside of a building, one of the things that Homeland Security tried to do, one of the things the military tried to do, you try to extend your perimeter and you try to identify the actor, the potential assailant, before they come into your zone, come into your building, come into your school. And this is the kind of technology that is trying to address that problem.
So Ridge Global has several different practices. I've noticed you're consultants, you're specializing in protection, but with a focus on cybersecurity primarily. Is this a technology that your company might one day think about representing, assuming that it works perfectly?
Well, you know, it's very kind of you to ask that question. It's going to depend on the good people at the company. One of the things we do see at Ridge Global, we see a variety of technologies that come across our threshold, come over the threshold, and some are just catch your eye, catch your attention, and you compare it what's on the marketplace, and this seems very, very unique. And interestingly enough, what I found out in some of the technologies in the United States, it's not the big companies that develop them, it's the small, agile entrepreneurs. Here it was done in collaboration with a Canadian element, and you got the research and development from a university, along with the incredible capabilities of the private sector, merging it together. So yeah, it's a disruptive technology. I'd be happy to talk to these good people.
Sure. Back in the summer, Time Magazine published a piece you had written where you lamented the hysterical knee-jerk reaction of the public in response to the increasing threat to public safety as a result of individual aggressors in the public realm. Do you think that this technology addresses their concerns while considering the privacy, that the society, an open society like democracies expect, without violating, without stepping over the line?
Well, what I tried to say to the editor or the individual that wrote it, my view is that terrorism is a risk laid on top of all the other responsibilities that law enforcement has. It's just an added complication. The psychological impact of that added complication is even greater than crime in the street. So it's an added burden, an added psychological burden that a lot of the public bears. And I think the ability to access this kind of technology, and for any particular community to know it, outside of school, outside of corporate building, outside of public building. I mean, we saw what happened in Paris, you saw what happened in San Bernardino, a nightclub in Orlando, and the list goes on and on. The notion that they are there, very unpretentious, potentially covert, there's a certain, maybe not for the citizen or the customer, but for the owner and the local law enforcement, they're going to feel a heck of a lot better, a lot safer, a lot more secure.
You bet. Mr. Ridge, thank you for your time today.
My great pleasure. Good to be with you. Thank you.